At 0314 hours on March 12, 2025, a shift supervisor at the Ryazan oil refinery was pouring his third cup of coffee, completely unaware that a swarm of 35 Ukrainian long-range drones had been tracking toward his facility for the past 4 hours. In exactly 120 seconds, the fractional distillation column outside his window, a critical piece of infrastructure responsible for processing 60,000 barrels of crude oil daily, would cease to be a profitable industrial asset and instead become the world's most expensive candle. The attack force had launched from the Chernihiv region at 2300 hours, navigating through the pitch-black night using a complex series of waypoints designed to exploit the known gaps in Russian radar coverage. This was not a random harassment fire mission. This was a synchronized, multi-vector strike package aimed at the jugular of Moscow's energy economy. The primary weapon of choice for this operation was the Liutyi, a Ukrainian-manufactured strategic drone that looks less like a weapon of war and more like a twin-boom civilian hobby plane, until you realize it carries a 75-kilogram warhead over a range of 1,000 kilometers. Its push-propeller configuration, driven by a reliable 50-horsepower internal combustion engine, pushed the composite airframe through the freezing Russian spring air at a leisurely 150 kilometers per hour. Why fly supersonic when you can fly low, slow, and virtually invisible against the ground clutter? The route planning for this raid was a masterclass in geospatial analysis and patience. Instead of flying a straight line toward Moscow, which would have taken them directly into the teeth of the formidable ring of S-400 and Pantsir air defense batteries protecting the capital, the drone operators chose a path that looked insane on a map. They skirted the border of Belarus, dipped low over the winding river valleys of the Smolensk region, and used the dense forests as a natural radar shield. At an altitude of less than 50 meters, the drones were effectively hiding in the electronic shadow of the terrain. The Russian radar operators, sitting in their warm command trucks, scanning for high-altitude bombers or ballistic missiles, had almost zero chance of spotting a carbon fiber object with the radar cross-section of a large pigeon skimming the treetops. The drone's onboard navigation system was equally sophisticated. It did not rely solely on satellite positioning, which the Russians were known to jam heavily around major cities. Instead, it utilized a form of terrain contour matching, comparing the physical landscape below with a stored digital map, ensuring that even if the GPS signal turned into garbage, the drone still knew exactly where it was within 3 meters. By 0320, the lead elements of the drone swarm had reached the terminal phase of their flight, a point of no return where stealth is traded for terminal accuracy. The target was the atmospheric distillation unit, specifically the primary column where crude oil is heated to 350 degrees Celsius to separate it into various fuel products. To an engineer, this is the heart of the refinery. Destroy the column, and the entire plant shuts down for 6 to 18 months while a custom-built replacement is manufactured. The economics of this strike are brutal enough to make an accountant weep. The Liutyi drone costs roughly $50,000 to produce. The distillation column it was targeting represents an investment of roughly $150 million, not counting the $500 million in lost revenue from the ensuing downtime. That is a return on investment of 300,000%, achieved in the blink of an eye. As the first drone began its shallow dive toward the lit-up industrial complex, the refinery's local defense systems finally woke up. A localized GPS spoofer kicked in, broadcasting a signal telling the drone it was actually flying over an airport 20 kilometers away. This is where the engineering arms race truly gets interesting. In the early days of the war, that GPS spoofing would have sent the drone veering harmlessly into a field, but the Ukrainian engineers had upgraded the guidance logic with what is known as terminal optical correlation. As the GPS signal drifted into nonsense, the drone's nose camera activated, snapping 30 frames per second of the approaching skyline. The onboard computer compared these high-contrast images of the refinery's distinctive thermal and visual signature against a preloaded target library. It saw the tall, thin vertical structure of the distillation tower, recognized it as the priority target, and locked in the flight path using pure geometry. It stopped listening to the satellites and started flying with its eyes. At 0322, the shift supervisor inside the control room noticed a sudden anomaly on the perimeter security feeds, a fast-moving shadow that did not belong there. He reached for the emergency shutdown button, a desperate attempt to cut the flow of flammable hydrocarbons. But physics is rarely that forgiving. The first drone slammed into the midpoint of the distillation column at a velocity of 180 kilometers per hour. The impact fused the kinetic energy of the drone with the chemical potential of the target in a catastrophic release of energy. The 75-kilogram warhead, likely a thermobaric or high-explosive fragmentation mix, detonated instantly upon contact with the steel skin of the tower. But the real damage came a split second later. The explosion ruptured the pressurized vessel, releasing superheated crude oil vapor into the oxygen-rich atmosphere. When that vapor cloud met the ignition source of the burning warhead, it created a massive secondary fuel-air explosion that was visible from 20 kilometers away. The shockwave shattered windows in the administration building 400 meters away, but the thermal effects were far worse. The structural steel supports of the tower, suddenly subjected to temperatures exceeding 1,200 degrees Celsius, began to lose their tensile strength. Within minutes, the massive steel column began to list to the side, threatening to collapse onto the adjacent piping racks and turn a single disaster into a chain reaction of industrial destruction. And this was just the first hit. There were still 34 drones in the air, and they were not all aiming for the same pipe. Meanwhile, on the outskirts of Moscow, near the Ramenskoye district, a Russian Pantsir-S1 air defense crew was frantically trying to track multiple low-slow targets appearing on their scope. The Pantsir is a formidable system, combining rapid-fire 30mm cannons with 12 supersonic surface-to-air missiles. On paper, it is designed exactly for this scenario. But in practice, the system was being overwhelmed by the sheer volume of the attack. The radar computer was trying to process 12 different tracks simultaneously, all moving at different vectors. The operator had to make split-second decisions on which target to prioritize. Do you shoot the one heading for the electrical substation or the one heading for the aviation plant? He locked onto a drone approaching from the southwest and fired a missile. The missile, accelerating to Mach 3 in seconds, intercepted the drone 3 kilometers out, turning it into a cloud of fiberglass confetti. A cheer went up in the cabin, but their celebration was premature. They had expended a missile costing $200,000 to destroy a drone worth $50,000. And while they were reloading, 3 more drones slipped through the engagement envelope, flying below the radar horizon of the system. The second wave of drones was targeting something even more sensitive than oil: the microelectronics and optics factories that supply the Russian military-industrial complex. One specific target was a facility in the Tomilino district known for producing specialized optical coatings for tank sites and missile seekers. This was a precision strike in the truest sense. Unlike the refinery, where a big explosion anywhere is effective, this target required the drone to hit a specific ventilation shaft or roof section to penetrate the clean rooms below. The drone assigned to this target was carrying a shaped charge warhead, similar to an anti-tank weapon but scaled up for structural demolition. As it approached the urban sprawl of Moscow, the electromagnetic environment became a chaotic soup of jamming signals. The Russians were blasting noise across the 2.4 GHz and 5.8 GHz bands, trying to sever any command link. But these drones were fully autonomous, operating on a fire-and-forget principle that required no human hand on the joystick. They were robots on a suicide mission, driven by algorithms that could not be intimidated or confused by radio static. Back at the Ryazan refinery, the situation had escalated from a fire to a full-blown crisis. The collapse of the primary distillation column had ruptured the feed lines for the secondary cracking unit. Burning crude oil was now flowing through the drainage channels, effectively spreading the fire across the facility faster than the emergency crews could deploy foam. The shift supervisor, now evacuated to a safe distance, watched as a second drone circled overhead. This one behaved differently. It did not dive immediately. It loitered, its engine droning with a terrifying patience. This was a tactical evolution that terrified the emergency responders, the double-tap strike. The drone was waiting for the fire crews to gather, or perhaps waiting for a specific thermal signature to present itself as the fire stripped away the insulation on other tanks. It was a psychological weapon as much as a kinetic one, forcing the firefighters to retreat and let the facility burn rather than risk being caught in the next blast. The economic damage meter was spinning like a slot machine, adding millions of dollars to the bill with every passing minute of unchecked combustion. At 0345, the chaos spread to the civilian sector as the Russian authorities initiated Plan Carpet over Moscow's airspace, a protocol that instantly grounds all commercial flights and clears the sky of anything that is not military. At Domodedovo International Airport, 30 kilometers south of the city center, air traffic controllers watched their radar screens fill with false positives and legitimate threats, unable to distinguish between a passenger jet and a loitering munition. This is the hidden cost of drone warfare that rarely makes the headlines. You do not actually have to hit the airport to shut it down. You just have to fly a $20,000 drone within 10 kilometers of the approach path. The economic ripple effect is immediate and brutal. Diverting 20 heavy wide-body aircraft to alternate airfields burns hundreds of tons of jet fuel, disrupts logistics chains for days, and panics the insurance markets. While the Pantsir batteries were busy trying to shoot down the physical drones, the mere presence of the swarm was inflicting millions of dollars in operational losses on the Russian aviation sector every hour. It is a form of economic siege warfare where the attacker spends pennies to force the defender to burn stacks of cash just to maintain a semblance of safety. Meanwhile, a different breed of predator was approaching the Lukoil Nizhny-Novgorod refinery, roughly 400 kilometers east of Moscow. This facility processes 17 million tons of oil annually, turning crude into the high-octane gasoline that fuels the Russian war machine. The weapon approaching this target was not the sleek Liutyi, but a modified aero-pracked A-22 Foxbat, a light sport aircraft converted into an uncrewed aerial vehicle. This monstrosity is the brute force solution to the problem of hardened targets. While the smaller drones carry warheads that can puncture a tank, the converted A-22 carries a payload of nearly 150 kilograms of high explosives. It is essentially a flying car bomb with wings. Flying at 90 kilometers per hour, its Rotax 912 engine screaming like a lawnmower, it relies on sheer audacity rather than stealth. The Russian air defense network is calibrated to detect fast jets or small missiles. A slow-moving, high-radar cross-section plastic plane flying at treetop level creates a cognitive dissonance in the automated targeting logic. Is it a threat? Is it a lost private pilot? By the time the operator decides to fire, the physics of the situation have already decided the outcome. At 0410, the A-22 drone slammed into the refinery's primary fluid catalytic cracking unit. Unlike the earlier strikes which targeted distillation columns, hitting the cracking unit is a stroke of strategic genius. This unit breaks down heavy hydrocarbon molecules into lighter fuels like gasoline and diesel. It operates at extremely high pressures and temperatures, often exceeding 700 degrees Celsius. When the 150-kilogram warhead detonated, it did not just break a pipe. It compromised the structural integrity of a reactor vessel containing hundreds of tons of catalyst and superheated hydrocarbons. The resulting explosion was registered as a magnitude 2.3 seismic event by local monitoring stations. The fireball rose 200 meters into the night sky, a terrifying testament to the energy density of fossil fuels when released uncontrollably. The destruction of this single unit effectively removed 5% of Russia's total gasoline production capacity in a single second. The replacement time for a custom-built catalytic cracker is not measured in weeks, but in years, especially under the crushing weight of international sanctions that block the import of critical Western petrochemical technology. As dawn broke over the Moscow region at 0530, the full scale of the raid became visible to the satellite constellations passing overhead. The Russian Ministry of Defense claimed to have intercepted 58 drones, a statistic that might comfort the general public but terrifies military planners. In a saturation attack, the interception rate is irrelevant. Only the leakage rate matters. If you launch 60 drones and 55 are shot down, but 5 hit critical infrastructure, the mission is a catastrophic success for the attacker. The 5 drones that slipped through the net destroyed assets worth hundreds of millions of dollars and degraded the national energy grid. The Russian air defense crews had expended nearly 120 surface-to-air missiles during the engagement. Each missile costs roughly $200,000 to replace. The total cost of the Ukrainian drone swarm was perhaps $3 million. The cost of the Russian defensive response alone, ignoring the damage to the refineries, was upwards of $24 million. It is an asymmetry that no national budget can sustain indefinitely. You cannot shoot down cheap flying mopeds with gold-plated interceptors forever. The aftermath of the March 12th raid revealed a grim new reality for the Kremlin. The strikes had not just targeted random fuel tanks. They had surgically removed the most complex, hard-to-replace nodes of the energy infrastructure. The attacks targeted the bottlenecks of the process, the distillation towers and cracking units, rather than the storage tanks. A storage tank is just a steel bucket. You can patch it in a week. A distillation tower is a precision-engineered instrument that requires months of fabrication. By knocking out these nodes, Ukraine effectively turned the crude oil in the ground from a strategic asset into a stranded liability. Russia has plenty of oil, but without these refineries, it cannot turn that oil into the diesel required to move tanks or the jet fuel required to fly bombers. The swarm had proven that the concept of a safe rear area was now a historical fiction. With a range of 1,000 kilometers, the Ukrainian drone program had placed the industrial heart of the enemy on the front line. The final insult to the Russian defense network came not from the explosions, but from the silence that followed. As the fires burned at Ryazan, Kstovo, and Kurishi, the global energy markets reacted with predictable volatility. Gasoline futures spiked by 4.5% in trading, reflecting the uncertainty of supply. But for the engineers assessing the wreckage, the message was clear. The era of immune airspace was over. The combination of commercial electronics, clever coding, and basic aerodynamics had defeated one of the world's most dense air defense environments. The drones had utilized a mix of inertial guidance, terrain following, and terminal optical homing to bypass layers of electronic warfare and kinetic interceptors. They had turned the physics of radar horizons and the economics of missile defense against their creators. As the smoke cleared over the blackened skeletons of the distillation columns, one thing was certain: the swarm would be back, and next time, there would be even more of them.